Film, gaming, pop culture. Welcome to episode 28 of Everything is Permitted here at Wade's Comic Madness. I'm your host, Julian Brown, alongside my co-hosts Matt Reppert and Brittany Tomes. How we doing this week?
I'm ecstatic, man. It's been a great week.
Both of us are a little, I think...
We're on soccer highs,
soccer caffeine highs.
For sure.
Matt's judging us for doing the...
Yeah, you guys are... Well, that's Angels in the Outfield.
No, and it's D2 the Mighty Ducks, which you've never seen.
Yeah.
Quack.
Well, you've never seen Angels in the Outfield, so go to hell.
You've never seen Angels in the Outfield?
No, I saw Angels in the Outfield in theaters.
Okay, well, I've seen the movie.
I also saw, what was it, Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year.
I saw that in theaters as well. Oh, my God.
I was going to say this was also Carly Lloyd on Thursday.
Carly Lloyd on Thursday. So it is like one of those things that if you listen to this show, you know that all three of us now are hardcore soccer fans. So every now and then, soccer is going to be mentioned on this show.
We did. I mean, I remember a previous episode. You and I did mention that we had been, because it was when the Union beat New York Red Bulls when they were down 2-0 and came back and scored 3 goals. I remember we did mention that we freaked the hell out.
We did. And this past week has been a very busy soccer week in Philadelphia. We had the U.S. women's game on Thursday, 4-0 against Portugal. Brittany and I were there. Matt, you were.
I was working.
And then last night, the Union had probably their biggest game ever, beating Atlanta 3-1, clinching first place back, and clinching a playoff spot in the process as well. So we're all a bit on a soccer high. That's mentioned. That's out of the way now. We have a great show for you today. We are going to be talking about the late, great Jack Kirby, since it is Marvel's 80th or 85th?
I want to say 80th, but
I think it's 80th birthday. There was a huge celebration here at Wade's yesterday. Some free comics were given out. There was some cake and cookies and deliciousness and all that good stuff. We're going to go down a list of some of his biggest accomplishments. We're also going to be talking about Destiny 2, the upcoming Shadowkeep expansion, and what that means, as well as Luke Smith's 3-part 4,000-word director's cut, where he talks about Destiny in Year 2 and some highs and lows of the game. And finally, we missed it by like a day last week. The day after we recorded, they released that insane Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker footage with evil, dark, crazy Rey and her Swiss Army knife lightsaber. So
the only way to truly fix the galaxy.
Jesus God.
That is one of the best gifts ever made on internet history.
I love it.
So we'll get to that too. As always, before we get started, we are going to have some rants and raves. If it's okay with you guys, I'm actually going to save my rants and raves until after the permitted minute, because it has to do with some things in the permitted minute. So if any of you, Matt, Brittany, rave?
So I got a rave, actually. I purchased the game Control, which it was made by Remedy, who, if you don't know, they made Alan Wake. They also made the Max Payne series. They make gorgeous games, and I already beat Control. I actually 100%ed it, got all the achievements. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I'm not going to say it's an amazing, I would tell people, you probably don't need to buy it at $60. You can wait for it to drop in price a little bit. And I've said in the show numerous times that give me a game that has a start, an ending, and has a satisfying story. And Control gave that to me. It gave me all of that I could have asked for. As I said, I enjoyed the ride. I already beat it. It's on my shelf, but I'm very happy that I played it and that I bought it.
It gave him complete control. No, for real though, I am excited to play that game. I've been looking forward to it. So it's good to hear a good review.
It's getting good reviews, I think, everywhere.
Yeah, it definitely, and it takes a lot from, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a website called the SCP Foundation.
No.
Okay, so it's a website, it's a fan website, and it's basically anybody can submit a story to it, but it has to be approved by, I don't know if it's by the site moderators or by the forum or something like that, but basically, if you don't know what the SCP Foundation is, SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect, and think Men in Black, but think not aliens, but horrific creatures and things that that go bump in the night, and basically people submit stories and they're numbered case file number 539, and these stories, some of them are funny, some of them are spooky as hell. One of them is a creature that literally only move. It's kind of like the Blink Angels, if you don't look at it, it moves, and they have these containment procedures where somebody has to be in the cell with it and stare at it with another guy, and if he blinks, he has to say, I am blinking in 3 seconds, 3, two, and so the other guy knows to keep his eyes open and keep staring at it.
What the
That's
hell?
insane.
Yeah. And then
That's
there's
Costa
stuff.
Doctor Who.
Yeah, and then there's like benign stuff. Like there's a giant ball that has like an apartment inside of it, and nobody knows how it fits in there, but it couldn't possibly work. I mean, it's like you'd have to go to the website and read some of the stuff. Like I'm not doing it justice, but
No, I mean you are. It sounds crazy.
but basically, Control obviously takes from that site. It's an agency called the Bureau of Control where they deal with this stuff. Where they have like a TV that can literally like levitate things and smash things into walls. They have a projector which opens portals to other dimensions.
This
and
is
things
right up
like
my
that.
alley.
Yeah,
I'm gonna read this website until like 3 a.m.
Oh my God, go nuts! I'll send the link for it in the
I
the
should
chat.
add my stories in there because I've had some weird dreams.
Yeah. I actually almost submitted 1 or 2 stories myself, but I never did.
We should all submit stories to this website. I'm like, now I got ideas.
Honestly,
I will now. I've had some Cthulhu level dreams where I'm like, was that a message from some deep great one, or did I just eat a taco?
I'm going to relay. How do you say that city? The sunken city of it's like
It's not
R
supposed to be
apostrophe.
pronounced.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually not supposed to be pronounced.
Like humans can't possibly pronounce it in the vocal tones that the deep ones use.
Okay.
I like that.
Just throwing it out there. Like you can try your best to pronounce it, but it'll never be the true word.
Rant rave.
Oh, okay. My rant / rave because it's all just obviously Dark Crystal. You guys probably saw on Facebook that I was freaking out yesterday.
Yeah.
I've only watched the first 2 episodes because yesterday is my big D&D night, so I couldn't just keep watching, even though I played it in the background and tried to look over people's shoulders.
How is it so far? I can't wait to watch it.
Love it. Anybody who loves the original film will love the show more than the film.
I
didn't think that was possible.
heard like from
It's-
you and other people, the first episode is just
Well, the first episode just like it does something that you're like not really prepared for, and you're just like, first of all shocked, but also you're just like, this show is amazing. I love it. I'm already sold. It continues the same tone as the original film, so it has like this like fantastical elements, but it is very dark in nature. I know it's literally called Dark Crystal, but it continues that dark nature that unfortunately is the reason why the film wasn't as successful and popular when it was released, you know, because Jim Henson was a little disappointed about that because it was one of his greatest works. He considered it to be.
Yeah.
I think that's
It's amazing.
a pretty popular opinion though, is that it was one of his greatest works.
Oh, it is.
But
He poured
it
his
had
life
that
into
cult
that.
classic status, unfortunately.
People just, it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that with the show. It's coming out now when people are in the right mindset for it. And especially those that watched it when they were younger. And when it came out, are now seeing it again, and it's fully fleshed out. I love the practical effects and the puppetry that's in it. The set design, everything's amazing, from the score to the voice acting to the actual puppetry. And then they do incorporate CG, but it's not overused. It's in specific scenes where it's either supposed to incorporate like how something
enhance
is
it.
working magically in nature, or a creature's moving in such a way that even in a battle scene, they'll have like the puppets sometimes, but then if it's skittering up a wall or something's happening in a cavern, then it's moving with CG. But it adds to the story. It doesn't detract or take away. You're not like, oh, this is cheesy. You're like, this is believable in my mind to be fantasy. And it's
I was actually surprised because I had done some research before it came out. They're like, there's a couple famous people in the show. Like I know Simon Pegg plays the Chancellor, which if you don't remember, he's the
He does a really good job. I literally could not pick him apart from the original voice actor.
Yeah, and Jason Isaacs, who's in Star Trek Discovery, he plays the Emperor, who is the Skeksis that
So good.
Well,
dies
come on.
in
Let's
the
not
best,
say from
like,
Star
bad
Trek
guy.
Discovery, even though that is true. I mean, everybody knows Jason Isaacs as Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
I'm just
Lucius
pointing that out.
Malfoy, the bad guy in the OA. We all know he's the
Also,
main bad guy.
Captain Lorca from Discovery. Yeah, no, I didn't
The
know either of
Patriot
them were in
also.
that. Yes, the
bad guy in
the
The
bad
Patriot.
guy in the Patriot. Now that's a deep cut. I like that.
there you go.
I love
Deep
that
cut.
movie. Psycho
Get the
Mel.
hell out of here.
Oh my
Okay,
Weaver's
shut up.
in it,
I love
and-
any action movie with Mel Gibson, though.
That's true.
Listen, just because he's a dickhead doesn't mean that he didn't make good action movies.
land, but they can't take our freedom.
See,
There you go.
one of the greatest quotes about the movie Braveheart was from a British historian that I heard years ago when when it was the History Channel did this thing called "How Accurate Is Braveheart?" And I remember this British historian. You could tell this guy was just like had his face in his hands at some point because he goes, "I don't know how you can have the Battle of Stirling Bridge and not have the bloody bridge."
I mean, that's any Hollywood like.
Yeah, but seriously, how?
historical film.
I don't know if it was supposed to be terribly accurate. You know, like Robert the Bruce apparently was not like the dickhead that he is in the movie. Apparently, he was actually a pretty just guy. And who knows, if any of that shit happened in The Patriot, but it was a fun movie.
Oh, The Patriot was so over the top.
And let's
I
talk about
highly
the
doubt
Lethal
this white
Weapon
man
trilogy
was
too,
doing
man. Those movies are great. Like,
Wait, what? We've gone from Braveheart to The Patriot to Lethal
this.
Weapon.
Lethal
said-
Weapon
I
was a
specifically
historical
said-
fact, obviously.
yeah, I specifically said Mel Gibson action movies.
But here's Mel Gibson did not make Lethal Weapon. He just starred in them. He
Yeah.
directed Braveheart. He
Yeah, I think
he didn't
directed
direct
The
The Patriot. I
Patriot,
don't
too.
think. I don't know.
Who
I don't
knows?
think he did.
Anyway,
Lost the time.
Either way, putting that plug in for Dark Crystal, literally, it sold me after the first episode. I will finish it definitely today and probably cry and rant about it some more. Probably not the best for kids right now. Watch it all yourself first and then decide what you want to show your kids.
my Netflix list goes something like Stranger Things, Designated Survivor, Another Life, Dark Crystal, I think is there's like 4.
I'm gonna try to
that.
start Dark Crystal today.
Yeah, that might just skip to the top.
Oh man, the lore is so deep. They actually start explaining like the 7 Gelfling clans, and I was just like, I was sweating. I was so excited.
I wish I had the nerd alert soundbite
Yeah, to be like,
here.
God.
I mean, this is a nerd podcast,
Once
but
there
like,
But I will
7
prepare people.
Gelfling
Like some
clans.
people were going into it being like, "Oh, this is going to be like a cute little Jim Henson story." It's
Oh,
like,
no.
You saw the original film. You already know it's pretty dark, but it begins where literally the main characters are 2 of the last remaining Gelflings.
About to say, like, before I saw the I mean, once they said the show is a prequel, like,
Yeah,
and then I
and you're
saw
like,
that, like,
oh
there's a
my
lot of
God.
Gelfling characters, and I was like, oh no,
You're like, is there going to be a
no.
genocide? What happened?
Like, they're gonna be
Be
genocided.
prepared. That's all I'm going to say. Because it's the age of the resistance, aka when they're starting to question Skeksis rule, but it's not going to end well.
I want to watch. I'm pumped. Brittany's got me pumped.
Mark Hamill's also in it.
Yes,
and
he is. I
Sigourney
knew
Weaver.
that.
But
Yep.
anyway, I just wanted to point out, like, Mark
Man, they
Hamill's
got
so good.
the king and queen of the nerds.
Yep, they
That's
do.
all I need, those 2.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, those are 2 of our rants and raves. Like I said, I'll get to mine after the permitted minute. And by saying that, Matt, it is time for
The permitted minute.
the permitted minute, and we are going to go here in 4, 3, 2, 1.
The final trailer for Todd Phillips' Joker film starring Joaquin Phoenix dropped its final trailer this past week, while also confirming a hard R rating for the film. Interestingly, AMC Theaters has listed Joker as one of its artisan films.
There was another trailer released for the upcoming Terminator film that no one could have possibly asked for.
The Obi-Wan Disney series starring Ewan McGregor
Hello there.
will take place 8 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith.
On the subject of Disney Plus, the upcoming streaming service confirmed that they will not release full seasons at once, going along with the CBS All Access or network TV model of releasing episodes weekly.
Going back to the Joker, the film review embargo has been lifted, and the movie is receiving extremely high praise, with IGN giving it its highest score of 10, a masterpiece.
Yeah, we did that in plenty of time after last week's snafu. We still had, I think, 10 seconds left. So ding, 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 go us. There, but to be fair, it was because D23 took on like all the headlines
Yeah,
last
we
week.
did like
yeah.
11.
There was like not a lot of news this week, which is fair because otherwise we'd have, a shit ton more to talk about. I want to go on my rant real quick here, and it is about the Joker. Listen, I'm going to see this movie. Like, I'm going to see it. It looks good. Joaquin Phoenix looks fantastic. Robert De Niro's in it. I mean, this is going to be a good movie. What I can't stand is this fucking guy, and I'm going to forget his name. He's an actor / producer who has just like doubled and tripled down on being like, this isn't a comic book movie, like comic nerds just need to shut up, blah 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 blah.
God.
This is exactly how I'm not going to go see your movie, because like, you're in a comic book movie. I don't care if there's 0 comic source material in this movie. Joker is a comic book character. This is a comic book movie. Whether it wins Oscars or not, we'll find out in February, March. But for now, it is a DC movie, whether it's also the DC Black Label or not. Mm-hmm. It's a DC movie, and it's a comic book movie.
And you have to pay respect to the fact that the character itself is an iconic comic character, whether you're playing it from the comics or not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to see this movie, but you opening your mouth and talking about how comic books are just for kids and stuff and, like, men, like, shut up. Let the other people promote your movie, because this is how people will turn against you very quickly and not go see it.
My feeling of the Joker movie is and I know I kind of like, poked fun at it before we started recording about this whole idea of it's not a comic book movie. It's a movie for the critics, for the people to enjoy on a intellectual level. Like, okay, that's fine. And I'm interested to see it. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters. Maybe if it gets like amazing word of mouth.
I'm telling you now, we'll probably do an episode on it, so I'm going to pull both of you to the theater to go see this as a podcast crew.
I want to see it so I can put in my views for it.
Yeah.
But I do agree that a lot of comic films, regardless of how well they've done in theaters, and for that matter, any fantasy or like sci-fi film, no matter how well it's done, often snubbed at the Oscars, save like maybe Lord of the Rings and a few others. But that's just given that the Academy is a certain age range of people, a specific type of demographic, and they're automatically set in these minds that they continue to think that, any comic or sci-fi or fantasy film is the same thing as it was 50 years ago, even. So I feel like they feel like they have to market this film that way so that it will be considered for Oscar praise, that they literally have to be like, this is a comic film that's not like any comic film, so we're not going to call it a comic film. Whereas they could just show you, this is an amazing comic book character, this is our take on the story, you tell us whether it's worthy or not. I feel like it just still has that connotation where people think automatically, they're trying for a blockbuster and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and I know something else that I talked about before we recorded is the idea of like, hey, DC is like, and I hope DC doesn't go the route of they're gonna make these avant-garde, like, these movies are highbrow, they're these like really like you have to be like really intellectual to get these movies. And as I said, I'm interested to see like a character study of the Joker. But as I said before we started recording, part of what makes the Joker so interesting is how he plays off Batman. And honestly, like some of the stuff that I've seen from the trailers tells me that they've taken some elements from the show Gotham, which isn't a bad thing, But Joker kind of starts this movement of people who are like, oh, we're gonna like tear down the system and we're gonna start wearing Joker masks and caught doing crimes and being crazy and stuff like that. So, I mean, as I said, I'm interested to see it, but at the same time, though, there is something to be said for that popcorn flick that, like a Marvel movie, that I just I enjoy the ride, I enjoy watching it. I think there is a place for these, like, really intellectual comic book movies.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'll tell you right now, it is not going to make them a ton of money.
I don't know. I think I might disagree on it just because they've released they've lifted this review embargo so far away from the release of the movie. I think they are trying to pull fans by saying, hey, this movie is a masterpiece. People have reviewed it. People have said it's amazing. Go see it. I think that actually might help them. And I gotta say, as much as I've been iffy about the movie and the last couple trailers really have made me want to see it more, that everything else has failed them, okay? Going this dark, gritty route with trying to get like Justice League together didn't work. You know what worked? Hard comedy with Shazam. A comedy in Aquaman. And now they're trying something a little bit different again. They're going to try and make a more serious movie, but without maybe some comic back lore, and that's fine. I'm curious to see it. And obviously, with all these reviews already, it did work. So I'm, like I said, I'm curious to see what happens. I think they should shut up a little bit though about, trying to alienate comic fans, or at least this one guy trying to alienate comic fans. Like, let us make our own minds up.
I mean, my last thing I'll say about
Let
it
the
before
nerds speak.
Exactly.
my last thing I'll say before we move on is don't alienate your comic fan base by saying that this isn't a movie for them, because like those are the people that are going to probably see this movie first. I mean, my parents are not going to see the Joker. Like, they're not.
Nope.
I don't know. Like, I'm interested to see if this works, but at the same time, I'm just like, I think it'll be well received, but there is a difference between critic opinion and audience opinion.
100%. That's very true. And obviously, I think we have to wait till October 10th.
Yeah, something like that.
For us to have our take on it. So we'll see. Anyway, that's my rant and rave. Let's get to one of our main stories. It was Marvel's big birthday celebration all throughout the year, 80th birthday, at local comic shops here at Wade's. Like I mentioned earlier, they had a cool little celebration yesterday. People can come in and get some awesome free comics. Not to mention that there's just awesome stuff going on in Marvel right now. Brittany, I know that you're super excited to talk about the late, great Jack Kirby.
Yes. So, Jack Kirby, many people in the nerd community know of, but there's a lot of comic book fans out there and just general people in the population that don't realize how important Jack Kirby is, or maybe he's not as big a household name as Stan Lee. Just as much as Stan Lee should be the face of Marvel Comics and certain aspects of the comic book industry in general, Jack Kirby should be as well. So there's been a lot of movements to get statues for Stan Lee, or, streets named after him. And then I'm also like, what about Jack? Mm-hmm. They also work together on these things. They're the reason we have these amazing characters. So it's really nice that with, obviously he's already passed, but with his birthday coming up again, more people were giving little shout outs to Jack Kirby and talking about like their favorite heroes and etc. So it's nice to see that.
I think it'll be, this is like Jack Kirby died in 1994, so this will be 25 years that he's been dead.
Yeah.
I've always I've had a passing knowledge of Jack Kirby for a long time, and I'll sidebar with just a quick story. One of the greatest Jack Kirby tributes that still tears me up whenever I see it is from Superman the Animated Series. There's a comic book character that not a lot of people know about, because I didn't know about it, that they used in the show, but they modeled it on Jack Kirby. And it's a police officer by the name of Dan Turpin. And so there's a 2-part episode called Apocalypse Now, where Darkseid actually invades Earth, and that's when they first reveal the existence of Darkseid and Apocalypse and all that. And so basically Apocalypse invades Earth, there's this huge fight and such, and Dan Turpin essentially kind of leads the human resistance to it and fights off Darkseid's forces. And so, long story short, Darkseid is forced to leave by New Genesis, who says this Earth is under our protection, you're not messing with us anymore. And Dan Turpin kind of says something snide to Darkseid, and Darkseid just kind of goes, always remember that victory is without its price. And he kills Dan Turpin.
Oh.
He Omega beams him, just kills him on the spot. And then so basically they had a funeral, and they actually used characters that they didn't have the license to in his funeral, because they made, and then basically the whole episode closes with Superman standing over Dan Turpin's grave and saying, the Earth never needed a Superman, just a brave one. And then the episode closes with, not the end. And then it says, this episode is dedicated to Jack Kirby, long live the king.
It had to be right after his
It was
death,
4 years after the episode aired, from what I read.
Oh, wow.
I thought it aired right around, but no, it apparently, maybe I was wrong from what I read, but it was 4 years after.
That's pretty incredible.
It made me cry.
Oh, man.
That's not even watching the episode. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, comics and maybe even comic book movies wouldn't be where they are today without Jack Kirby. Everybody, Brittany mentioned it. Everybody talks about
industry. You can't separate his legacy from the industry.
No, not
it's the
one.
Same way that you can't separate Stan Lee from the industry as well. Even it could be 100, 200 years after their passing, and what they've done is so ingrained in it that it can't be taken out.
I actually would make the argument that Jack Kirby should probably get more recognition than Stan Lee.
The problem is that the only issue is that Jack Kirby didn't stick around and Stan did. But, I know, but it's but I mean, yeah, like I said, comics and modern comics. We mentioned this later on, but I'll say it now too. Modern day comics still use the methods and art, that Jack Kirby invented.
Oh, yeah. There's still artists that can't recreate the action he was able to capture on a page, and it still inspires them today. Even if they, as kids, didn't understand it, or they're like, this guy, he kind of makes characters look weird, or, the proportions aren't right, and I'm studying, anatomy in my art class, whatever. Eventually, they reach a point where they get to that level as an artist where they go back and they appreciate it, and they're like, wow, actually, his version of perspective, and the fact that, this room doesn't even have corners in it, it's just this weird panorama, somehow it captures you and pulls you into the motion more than a realistic setting would.
Well, there was a documentary on the History Channel, and I think it's on YouTube in its entirety, and I don't think it's a high def, but I highly recommend it. It's an hour-long thing about the history of comics, and Stan Lee himself, obviously his interview along with multiple other comic legends, and obviously Jack Kirby was long dead by this, but Stan Lee basically said that when Jack and I worked together, and he goes, I would tell him what was kind of in my head about this, he goes, and he brought it to life. Yep. So a lot of the looks of a lot of superheroes That's Jack Kirby. That wasn't like Stan Lee might be like, oh, he's got this, and he says, and he goes, and Jack would just be sitting there with a cigar chomped in his mouth, just like scrawling away.
And you'd be like, kind of like this, and then Stan's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Funny fact, Jack Kirby never wrote any Iron Man, but Jack Kirby is the creator of Iron Man's original look.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. Let's get into. We have a list here of some of his biggest creations and accomplishments. We'll go down this list. First, we got to talk about, even though it was a short run, bringing Uncanny X-Men to life. Again, pretty much anything that I'm only going to mention this once because we want to really focus on Jack Kirby, but anything really on this list, he did create along with Stan Lee. But again, it wouldn't have been what it was without Jack. So the biggest thing coming out of Uncanny X-Men, it was his creations of who ended up now being, a family of Magneto, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, and you can't have any modern X-Men comic without them in it. Like any core storyline, like House of M, even right now, House of X, Powers X, or Powers of 10, however you want to pronounce it. It's all so deeply ingrained, like you can't have an X-Men story without some aspect of these characters being in it, and they're some of the most powerful characters in the X-Men universe.
Well, it's interesting because Magneto, like you said, can't do anything without Magneto. He's been, prominent in pretty much every one of the X-Men movies as well. And then in current times, you have Quicksilver literally in two different Marvel universes. You have him in the Fox X-Men universe, and you had him in Avengers: Age of Ultron. It just really that you can't not have these characters somewhere.
I mean, Magneto was actually, it was a couple of years ago, was named the greatest comic book villain, I think, by...
I was going to agree. He's the greatest comic book villain / gray area comic book villain that you'll ever...
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, you could see Kirby, I could see Kirby putting himself in Magneto because, Magneto's original backstory, he's a survivor of the Holocaust.
Correct.
I think Jack Kirby himself was Jewish, if I recall correctly.
Yep. Exactly, yes.
So, so Jack Kirby in his mind, you could easily see him being like, if somebody was looking to do what they did again, like, how would I react to it? Would I be like peacefully like trying to coexist and make them understand, or would I fight? And I mean, like, once again, like, Magneto was named the greatest comic book villain ever, and it's not hard to see why, because of that whole story that Jack Kirby helped put into him.
I think that if someone asked me, like, randomly, like at a bar or at a tailgate or whatever, who do you think is the best comic book character villain ever? And I think the first name that would come to me is Magneto. I can't really think of anything. I could if you give me a few minutes, but Magneto is just so damn iconic, especially for us as kids with the animated series, X-Men animated series. So
even the beginning of the first X-Men film makes me tear up every time that he's like ripped away from his family, and then that activates like his X
mutation
gene because it's either when you're at puberty or under high levels of stress, and that's like literally got ripped away from his family at a concentration camp, and he starts bending that
the fence, which was an exact recreation
from the comics. Exactly.
Well, not only from the comics, but an exact recreation of the opening of the original X-Men film. They did it like scene for scene, like angle for angle. I was really impressed when they
gives me chills. I like have my hair standing up right
now. Let's move on to number 2 on the list here. It was again Jack Kirby did have some long runs on some comics, but a lot of them were also short. He was responsible for bringing the Hulk to life. Again, one of the biggest staples of not only comics, but now, the MCU. Everybody just loves saying, Hulk smash!
And these are really iconic, like, square features. Like, I guess they kind of consider it, like, blocky. Like, everybody's hands and face. But especially with the Hulk, like, he is responsible for all, like, that original look that people now have on t-shirts, even now, that are coming out. So
it's like that really like, and the hair's like really
like
thin on top.
And you're like, this is like a smushed Frankenstein, but like that's what started it.
I know
and
exactly
now you have
what
all
you're
these
talking
different
and Grey Hulk
evolutions.
Going down to number 3, this is a big one. Kirby. So this is interesting because Kirby penned the idea for Thor, but what Jack Kirby really loved was Norse mythology. He was really into it. So what happened was he was fleshing out not only Thor, but this awesome mythology revolving around Thor and Asgard and, the outlying realms.
And all that.
Yeah, exactly. Because of his fascination. And, look at Thor now.
It's definitely one of the deeper mythologies in the comic universe.
Well, and I know somebody pointed this out and I even kind of ranted about the first 2 Thor movies in the chat last night because I finally watched Thor: The Dark World.
I love our group chat, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Shameless plug. We're fantastic.
You should be in our group chat, but you're not.
But the thing is that, and I remember that this was pointed out when Thor Ragnarok came out, is the first 2 Thor movies are these dark, dour, very colorless movies, while Thor Ragnarok is bright and colorful. And they said they took Jack Kirby's art and finally turned it into a
dark.
movie. Yeah, Thor was never dark, and
even the Rainbow Road.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the
very
Bifrost.
bright and colorful and all that stuff, and they finally did that with Thor Ragnarok, and I think everybody around this table and people listening agree that Thor Ragnarok is better than the first 2 Thor
are
movies.
people, and
Yes,
I'm
I
giving
know.
a shout out to
I know
our friends at the Cinescape. Both of them, Sean and Bill, are not fans of Ragnarok, which I don't understand. But I mean, listen, the comedy aspect of the MCU I think has come up before, and some people are just not into that.
Yeah.
But if you've read comics, Thor has never been a serious character.
He's the goddamn god of thunder and lightning. Okay?
Exactly.
That's not a character you can
doesn't take
inherently
himself,
take seriously.
Horribly seriously. Like, he'll take the world-ending problem seriously.
Well,
but
yeah.
He is an all-powerful god in a comic book form, and his comics have always been bright and colorful. So, Ragnarok, I just thought was just a good time.
It's, I think, number 2 or 3 in my all-time MCU film.
I said
like
that at some
rewatched
point
them
we're gonna
all,
have to
did my
rank all
list.
of the first
By phases,
up
right?
to
Yeah.
Endgame, like which Marvel movie. So that'll be a future episode.
But it does say something that Thor, who maybe wasn't considered a major character, has now become, a pretty damn big pop icon, not pop icon, but, comic book icon. Just did a whole, Marvel series, one of their special events around Thor,
the War of the Realms?
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Brittany. War of the Realms was just a really cool, fun story. Didn't take itself too seriously.
I will put this out there really quickly because I don't see it's on the list, but people forget that Jack Kirby actually moved to DC for a brief
Yes,
period.
he did.
And basically, Darkseid and all those are his creations.
They
You
are.
can tell too.
yep.
It's his drawing style, especially the way you see Darkseid in a lot of like the initial animated series and everything. It's just that blocky style.
Yeah,
It's
and
kinda
going
got
back
that
to the
one
Hulk,
core suit that kinda looks
Darkseid
more
actually
like-
has a little bit of that old school Hulk look.
Yeah.
in
and
his-
that's why like if you didn't understand my story, like wait, Superman, that's DC. How were they having a tribute? Because he made Darkseid, he made Apocalypse, he made New Genesis. He like the
Now,
old,
there's an
the new-
Apocalypse in DC as well.
No, that's what it, well, I mean, like it's spelled like with a K, I think, but
Because there's Apocalypse in Marvel too.
you're talking.
They share a lot of.
Yeah, there's a lot of shared
Yeah,
shared names and things like
I'm
that.
calling you out,
I was
bros,
like
between
Darkseid.
Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel. All the bros that started calling Shazam Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and I was
Shazam.
like, he hasn't been for so long,
Yeah.
and he got sued.
Calling you guys out. But Matt, I do want to say that it is important to talk about that he did switch over to DC. I wanted to focus specifically on Marvel, because Stan Lee gets so much of the credit, and I thought it was important to say, hey, these characters that you love, that you're reading in comics and now seeing in these movies, a lot of that is Jack Kirby.
No, I get it, but as I said, like it's just you cannot overstate Jack Kirby's influence on the comic world. Like,
For not.
I mean,
For sure.
you can't. It's the guy, like literally, Darkseid is the big bad, if you will, of the DC universe.
100%,
and
yeah.
Jack Kirby made him.
Yep. Brittany, you were mentioning, as we move along on our list here, Captain America.
Oh yeah, I kind of jumped ahead, but I knew it was, I think, listed up ahead. But one thing I wanted to say real quick was just that, like, I know we're bringing up Jack Kirby and Stan Lee a lot, but we're not pitting them against each other, and by no means should they ever be pitted against each other, but just, we want them to be held to the same renown, because they both deserve it.
They do. Yeah.
But let me see. Oh yeah, Captain America. That was also co-created by Kirby and Joe Simon. But it was Jack Kirby who made the character come to life, and without him, and obviously his backstory of also being Jewish, a lot of comic creators at the time were Jewish, and some of them were even children of immigrants.
Yep.
So it was a huge deal when around World War II, all these things were happening and the U.S. wasn't getting involved yet. A lot of comics, like, they are inherently political to begin with. Comics are always political.
Yeah.
And
people
screw you
forget
to
that.
people who say that they are
Yeah.
not.
But Captain America punching Hitler in the face, like
That-
things like that, that character was made and created, and all these people, these artists and these writers and creators that were making these characters and doing these comics, a lot of them left to go overseas and fight when the U.S. finally got involved in the war. while they were gone, then other people took over, and then stories were changed a bit, and they took a step back from being super political until then they returned, and then they went back to the civil rights movement. And comics always reflect different stages of our society and history. When I was a language teacher, I was actually creating a summer class where I was going to teach the history of comics and how they've influenced our society in certain ways or reflected different paths. But Captain America, this is one of those things that, like, people, once again, will probably think of Stan Lee first, or because, the Avengers, oh, obviously this is what's happening. But you have to give credit where credit's due. Like, Jack Kirby helped co-create this. He's the reason why you have these amazing, powerful shots. Like, he captures action in such an amazing way. And then he did help modernize the character with Stan Lee, of course, and brought him into the Avengers.
Yep. Captain America. What can you not say about Captain America?
He punched Hitler in the face.
That's
his first comic.
Yeah, first comic, punching Hitler in the face. But I mean, like, how many times do you walk down the street and how many Captain America shirts do you see?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right up there,
forever.
iconic as Wolverine, as Iron Man. I mean, probably more popular than Iron Man, arguably. Who knows? Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to talk about the kind of the fifth thing on our list here, Black Panther. Not only because he was a supporting character for so long in the comics until Kirby helped bring him into his own book. There was a really cool feature on this. I'm giving a plug to the Franklin Institute.
I was going to say that. I took pictures of this because I was like, thank you for pointing this out. It's so important. People don't even realize. But
yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they had a really cool feature on Kirby bringing T'Challa and Black Panther into its own book during a time where, like, racial tensions in America were, like, at their peak. Like, and then here's this character, T'Challa, who is black, a king.
Literally named Black Panther.
Yeah, literally named Black Panther, and the ruler of an African nation, made up or not. And it worked. It worked. People bought it, and people hopped on it, and it became a popular book. And then, I mean, look at what the movie did for, people who may not have come to see these movies before. Not just, people automatically say, well, African Americans. I mean, no, not just African Americans.
Everyone.
Any person of African origin or nature or whatever, this brought everyone together, and this was their movie, and not only their movie, their comic character, and T'Challa's a badass. Like, he is. He's serious. T'Challa's not, like, over.
And just the sheer cast. Like, the fact that was one of the first major Hollywood films to actually have, like, an all-black cast like that, aside from, like, side characters that were white. Like, that was amazing to see, and to see the hype about it and everything that was happening. You're just like, what? It's insane that hasn't already happened in Hollywood or with comic book films. But you're like, I'm glad it is finally happening. It was definitely way too late, but we're getting on it.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, and T'Challa is very prominent right now in comics. He's the head for the Avengers right now in his book. He's got, instead of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's got Agents of Wakanda on their own awesome Wakandan helicarrier. Like, Black Panther's
Shuri
huge.
even has her own comic series.
She does, and she's actually taken on the mantle of Black Panther as well.
And she has before. It's like kind of... It's kind of like how he's sometimes married to Storm, sometimes not. Like,
yeah, the off and on. Yeah.
I mean, I love a power couple, but...
But none of that would have ever been possible if Kirby didn't take this chance and, bring him from supporting character to main character. Let's move on to another one. Now, this is a bit of a sore subject for people because Jack Kirby brought Silver Surfer to life. And less than stellar introduction into the Silver Screen. See what I did there? Silver Screen.
God.
Surfer. Had to. Sorry, guys.
That was one of my puns.
But Silver Surfer in the comics, not only the
Talk
first...
about cosmic power.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing the MCU has not hit yet, and I thought was maybe going to happen in Endgame, they were going to delve into a little bit, was the cosmic entities. But they completely ignored the fact that Thanos was, like, wiping everybody out to impress death. So I was like, well, not going to see any of that. But Silver Surfer, he has a new comic out, so that's Silver Surfer Black. Like, it's helping.
Are you reading it?
I haven't yet, but I've seen a lot of people get into it, and I'm like, thank God, there's finally another Silver Surfer comic.
I mean, they need to do it, and you're talking about, and we're going a little bit away from Jack Kirby, but I think it's a little necessary. You're talking about, like, them really going cosmic. Maybe Eternals is going to change that.
Maybe.
I really hope it does, because not only are they doing the Eternals, but apparently Eternals is going to introduce the Celestials.
Yes.
And maybe Galactus, and then maybe
That's like
Yeah.
that's always been a tough sell for Galactus and all that to me, because how do you like do Galactus?
just do it.
This
Just
is
do
like
it.
that brain meme where the dude's like thinking on this level, like Earth-based like problems, aliens are introduced, whatever. Now we're getting galactic. Now we're going here, and it's basically the Marvel universe is slowly expanding, and you release your full potential in your mind.
Well, I mean, just remember that Galactus is like a dude who eats planets. So that's
Yeah.
something like to see that actually in the like. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it'd be like it would just be ridiculous to do just like
Step
you'd be
one,
like, this
he
is
eats
ridiculous,
ego, even though
man.
he's already dead.
Um,
I said step one, he eats ego, even though he's
people
already
forget though that Silver Surfer was a major part of the original Infinity War comics.
Oh, no, he was.
You know, and he didn't really get his due or was
dead.
seen
Yeah,
in these
no.
movies because
That's why I was saying Infinity War and Endgame. I thought we're gonna start bringing in like this small, celestial things, but they didn't.
But again, another one of Jack Kirby's creations brought the Marvel Comics universe. You know, like you said, he was the first like cosmic based like big superhero. So moving along to the Avengers. Now Kirby wasn't huge on the Avengers, but he did come up with the original team of the Avengers: Hulk, Thor, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Iron Man, and Cap. So we mentioned it earlier that, you know, he co-created Captain America, and because of that, I don't believe, if I did some research on this, I was reading it before, that Cap was going to be on the Avengers team, and Kirby was responsible for saying, hey, let's have him on there too. Who's missing from this list? If we've seen him in the movies,
Like Black Widow,
Black
Hawkeye.
Widow, yep, Hawkeye. But I don't believe those characters were created yet. But you know,
And they still became main players later on. Anyway.
Yep. But yeah, so again, Avengers, a big one. But probably Jack Kirby's biggest creation. They're back and big in the comics again now, which is a really great thing to see, and that is the Fantastic Four.
The first comic family.
Literally the first comic
shaped
family.
the genre. Like,
Yep. I got a lot of this list. I'm going to give a big shout out to a website called Newsarama, and they stated this perfectly. It would be nearly impossible to go through everything Jack Kirby brought to Marvel in the Fantastic Four because of, you know, and a lot of the characters who became big characters debuted and were shown in the Fantastic Four. And then I know there was, Brittany, I'm sure you know all about this, Matt. I don't know if you knew about this. You know, the Fantastic Four were not in comics for the past few years. They killed their comic a few years ago, and there's a lot of outrage about it. Fantastic Four has been
going for a long time.
around forever. And finally they're back again now. There's rumors, hints, if you're reading Powers of X or House of X, that they're maybe setting up X-Men versus Fantastic Four. I would love to see that. It'd be really cool.
Well, let's be fair here, is that whenever Disney Marvel decides to do something with the Fantastic Four property, it's going to bring them back into national prominence, so to speak.
Kevin Feige has said specifically that he is going to do the Fantastic Four justice. They are going to do it right.
I'll hold him to that.
Knocking on wood. They
Like,
haven't
fight me.
they haven't screwed anything up yet. Except if you want to bitch about Thor.
I could bitch about a couple movies, but
Yeah. Sidebar real quick. 2 nights ago, I rewatched Iron Man 3, which is one of my least favorite MCU films. And it's good. It looked good in 4K.
My favorite thing about that movie was the way that it portrayed PTSD.
Yes.
Because at the time when I watched that movie, I had like this weird heart issue that happened. It was like a whole thing. I had to go to like the hospital. But in the movie, when he would like hyperventilate and have certain things that went wrong with him, like that was something that like I still had afterwards because I was worried my heart was going to stop beating randomly. I just like
No,
accidentally took
I'm
Nyquil
with
and
you
then
because
caffeine and
those
was bad.
panic attacks that he's had in that movie, like I've had those panic attacks.
Yeah.
They suck. They're the worst because you think you're dying and you're not.
Exactly.
But
and the way
no.
he would like hold his heart and like make sure it was still beating, like things like that. Like it was something. And when it happened in the movie, like I found myself doing it, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is.
There's
weird.
that great scene where he's in the restaurant with Rhodey, and like the kid mentions like how'd you escape the wormhole, and he like runs into the suit and he can barely breathe, and he's asking Jarvis, "Is it the heart? Is it the heart? Is it the brain?"
Yeah.
He's like, "You had an anxiety attack, dude."
So that's one of the core things I
Yes.
like a lot about that movie because I was like, dang, getting deep here with the PTSD.
But getting back to Fantastic Four, we were talking earlier, and I said I'd mention again about the design elements that are still used in modern comics to this day. Jack Kirby came up with all those while doing Fantastic Four. So, like you said, some people aren't even able to replicate those to this day. That's all him. So, again, I think we all agree that whenever Stan Lee is mentioned, it really should be Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, or Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, not just Stan Lee. At the risk of sounding a little fucked up, and I think most people know me that will know that it's not trying to come off this way. In a way, with Stan dying, I think that's actually helped a little bit to bring Jack Kirby into the light now a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because then when everybody's going back into the history of what Stan's done, it's shown them overlapping throughout time. It has a little, but at the same time, his death has also overshadowed him in some ways. It's kind of weird to say, but I know what you mean. At least people are looking back and being like, okay, there goes another great comic creator. Let's look at the people we've lost and like what they've all really brought to the table.
Well, and a good sorry, Matt. A good example of that is, like I saw a bunch of like happy birthday to the late great Jack Kirby posts on social media, which like I've never seen up until before Stan passed. So.
I mean, also, like, I don't know the full details, but also another thing, Jack Kirby also fought for, like, artist recognition and control of their work. Like, he fought for that up until, like, basically the day he died.
Well, yeah, because there was the whole thing with the comic
censor. We're basically, you drew this, so we have full control over it. We can do whatever we want with it. And basically Kirby was like, well, the artist, and we created it, so we should have some say in it. And as I think even his family like fought for it for years, and they finally got a settlement, I think, for I don't know what the amount was, but
I just want to close with if you listen to this segment and now you're like, oh man, like I need to go and read some of these things, come out to your local comic shop. I always like to plug comic shops. They unfortunately, going to your comic shop is a dying breed. Everybody's buying digital now. Come pick up some old comics. There's volumes, there's trades. There's huge anthologies of these things that you could pick up of Jack Kirby's work, of Stan Lee's work, anyone you can think of, like Steve Ditko as well. All of these guys, like, come pick up some comics.
There should be a framed photo of Jack in some of the MCU movies. That's what I've always felt, is that there should be like a framed photo somewhere in the background, not like focus on it, but just like if you're a sharp-eyed fan, you should be able to see it and be like, oh, there's Jack.
Anyway, so that's my plug. Come to your local comic shop, pick up some comics, and let's celebrate Marvel's birthday. It was fun.
Yay.
Cecily had her cake yesterday.
Oh, it was a pretty bomb cake.
It was
awesome.
It was pretty damn good. Chocolate cake with some Hershey Kisses on top. Oh. Bueno. Delicious. Let's move on to our next segment. This is actually going to be really interesting because at our table we have two people who basically have, I would say, a slight addiction to Destiny. If you don't know, Bungie, not Star Wars Destiny, the collectible card game, Bungie's Destiny, Destinies 1 and 2. Matt and I play religiously. I've taken a few breaks here and then. I've had some overly bad things to say over the years and some overly amazing things to say. And Brittany, who has never played Destiny before, but is possibly, with what we're going to talk about, a potential new player. So we're going to get into it. But Matt, I want to start right with you because we're going to talk about Destiny 2 moving forward into year 3, but a lot about what worked and didn't work in year 3. And you immediately, in year 2, immediately said to me, man, I have some opinions. I have some things I want to say.
So, all right. So basically, I read through the whole Luke Smith's thing, last night, and obviously I did it late at night, so I can't remember every single thing that he said and every single point that I'm just like, but one of the things that I feel very strongly about is the idea of this whole thing of them possibly moving to some kind of free-to-play model, which I'm already calling bullshit on right now. Like, you're not doing free-to-play. You know why? Because if I want Shadowkeep, I have to pay like $30 to $60 for it.
But you still have a bunch of other free content that you can play with free-to-play, and there's a lot of it.
The thing is that, like, and I know I've said this before, I don't like free-to-play games. I don't play Fortnite. I've never played Apex Legends. Overwatch isn't free to play, but it technically is the way its model is. I've never played Overwatch. I don't play games that have a primarily like, hey, it's free to play, but like you want all this extra shit, you just shell out a little bit of money for it. I don't do that. And if Destiny goes that way, I may drop from it. And that's a tough thing for me to say. Because I love Destiny. I love the lore. I've said this. Like, yep. I talked at length about Savathun, in one episode, and how excited I am to see her and what she can do in the Destiny universe. I own the Hardbound Grimoire Volume 1. I own the Hardbound Destiny comics, which some of them are really good. And the thing is that, like, the thing that I didn't buy with Luke Smith is when he's like, for example, he talked about the Reckoning and how they broke their rules for how a Destiny encounter should go, and that no ads spawn behind you, and that this and this and this. And he goes, and we broke our rules with that with Reckoning. And Reckoning, if you don't know, if you've never played Destiny, is, long story short, it's a, like, the top level, it's a 3-tier system, with obviously level 1 being the easiest and level 3 being the hardest. And level 3 consists of a bridge that you have to build in 6 parts. And meanwhile, there's ads coming at you and all that. And basically, Luke Smith kind of, like, moaned the fact that, you know, people were using their supers and that they were chaining them and that they were these gods and blah, 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 blah. The thing is that Luke Smith forgets that they need to play test things when they make games. Like, when they bitch about, like, oh, these supers and weapons are making them too powerful. And he said, well, that's not your guys' fault. That's ours. Yeah, but the thing is, like, if I'm developing a game and I create something that says, oh, killing enemies while you're standing in this well of radiance, it's called, like, replenishes your super, I could tell you very quickly that if you're in, like, with a crap ton of ads, which is what the Reckoning has, they're going to get their super back quickly. Like, how did nobody think about this?
I wanna do two things here real quick. I want to counter your point there with, unfortunately, and I'm not one of those people that wants to blame everything on Activision. I think that Bungie has just as much a part to play on why Destiny sucked at points. But I will say that they were trying to push out content because of Activision's brutal schedule still, when it was that season and when Reckoning was coming out. Activision wanted all of this new content at a very fast pace, so I don't think that the time was there. Should they have maybe pushed back a little bit and said, hey, we need to, like, look at this a little more? Yeah, they should have. 2, I want to get your point on this, Brittany, as someone who actually hasn't played before. Matt saying that he doesn't want the game to become free to play. How about you, as someone who hasn't played before? Do you like the fact that you could come in and have a lot of content to play right off the bat, and if you want the other stuff, you could just kind of pay a la carte? Does that interest you, or does it kind of turn you off?
I'm not a huge fan of the free-to-play games or anything where I have to really add more money in. That's just me from the get-go. That's why I don't play a lot of them. But when I was a teacher, for example, I did have a lot of the free-to-play games on my PS4 if I'd bring it to work. You know, if the kids were, like, in homework cafe or, like, doing something in between classes. So I'd let them play the PS4, and they would play things like Fortnite. So it's really good to get more people playing, and people that maybe aren't able to afford certain things if they're just playing for the base gameplay, I guess. So that way, if they're not able to, like, afford the higher things, but then it reaches a certain extent that if you really get into it, then you are in that scenario where you do have to pay for the better weapons or pay for, like, certain things. Now it's all skins with a lot of games.
Especially in Fortnite,
I don't think
right?
Destiny's like that, but
I mean, Destiny is kind of creeping towards that because they have they had the not the Solstice armor, the armor that has, like, these glowing.
No, that was the
Solstice
Dawning.
The
Dawning?
No,
Solstice.
it
It
was
was
Solstice. Yeah,
It
it
was,
was Solstice.
yep.
Dawning is the Christmas event.
I mean, listen, I may be in the minority here, but I didn't think, because I didn't have the Bright Dust to pay for it, I don't think that $20 was a lot to shell out for being able to put those glows on all 3 of my characters. That's me.
No, I get it, but the thing is, though, imagine, like, but that was only for 3 glowing armor set things. Imagine now when the entire season is built around that, when it's just like, oh, because, like, there was some Solstice stuff I didn't buy because, like,
Oh, there was some stuff I didn't buy, but there's also stuff there that I just didn't care about. Like, I don't need the stupid little shorty sparrow or the ghost with the life thing raft around it. Like, I didn't.
Yeah,
I
didn't get that either. But once again, though, is that, and this is something that has been pointed out by YouTubers and things, though, is that you're creating a status symbol because, like, oh, you don't have this because you didn't want to spend the money for it. And that happens in Fortnite. That happens in a lot of free-to-play games, is like, yeah, I actually plunked down the money to buy this baller skin that you don't have. It's basically,
think that's unavoidable, though.
No, I get that, but the thing is, you're moving the game more towards that. The whole idea of, you know, fear of missing out, FOMO, you know, that's the saying that, like, the younger generation has with this stuff, and that's what they're trying to capitalize on when they have these limited run, like, armor, like, shaders, armor, you know, armor ornaments, weapon ornaments. They're trying to capitalize on you going, oh, if I don't get it now, I'll never be able to get it.
I feel like from an outsider perspective, I don't think Destiny is gonna be as close to Fortnite as it is with these sort of things. Like, it seems like a different type of game, and at least when you are putting out the money, it's for specific things that involve the gameplay. It's not as much of a just how your character looks sort of thing. But at the same time, I do get where you're going, because like the more you put into it, the more they're able to keep going that sort of way with games.
And I think it's also just like it's the price you kind of have to pay for dumping your publisher a little bit. Like, listen, and we're gonna let's get into it. We'll talk about that more in a bit when we get down to that. I want to get into the annual pass, and this is going to be a lot of stuff from Luke Smith's director's cut here. I was not playing during the year 2 annual pass. That was the year for Forsaken and the Drifter, Black Armory, all of that. I came in just back in July again, or late June. This was still with Activision, and people, I think, were thrilled with the amount of content. But as we've been talking about, that weighed ridiculously heavy on the dev team. And Matt, how many times on this show have we talked about horrible working conditions and hours for...
No, absolutely. And honestly, like, I'm glad that Bungie can move to something where their dev team isn't going to be compromised. But I'll tell you this right now, though, is that they're going to probably somewhat compromise them just because they're going to be trying to stay relevant. And because a lot of games that are either free to play, or let's say Destiny never goes to the full free to play route, it kind of stays similar to kind of what it is now. They have to stay relevant in the current video game market, so they have to keep putting out content. And whether they, realize it or not, like, as awesome as that new raid may be, people are gonna beat it within a week or two. And what else you got for me, man? Like, and we're gonna get to the Shadowkeep and how big it's supposed to be later on.
I wanna give a quote, and this is from a Forbes article who did a kind of these are the important parts of his director's cut. Paul Tassi wrote this from Forbes, and this was a quote from Luke Smith on the annual pass. The scope of what we delivered, the pace that we delivered it, and the overall throughput for annual pass takes a toll on the Bungie team. I and many others had conversations throughout the year with team members who had jumped from release to release about the grind of working on Destiny. Working on the game was starting to wear people down. And that's something with any game, Brittany.
Yes,
like
the video game crunch.
Yeah, you never want to hear about.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's really hard, especially the larger that a company gets, the more that this tends to happen. I mean, look at what Telltale Games did to their employees before they went under. It's absolutely atrocious. And you have people pulling, like, an insane amount of hours per week just to get things out by a specific date. So with this... like, it sounds like you guys are talking about, like, downloadable content or these various...
You pay, like, $30 for a pass.
Exactly. It's
for the year, and you get all of this content.
Yeah, it's kind of like how certain games are switching to having, like, episodes
exactly.
that come out at certain months.
Yeah. Yep.
Where you can choose to pay in advance, or you just pay when they come out. So I get that, and there's ways that those models, I guess, are better than some of the free-to-play models that, will just keep pulling money out of you consistently for, like, stupid stuff. So at least you kind of know what you're paying for here, and you can choose whether to or not. But at the same time, it is true that as a player, you're like, I see that this is coming out. It's not going to take me very long to beat it. When do I have to wait to the next one? And part of you is like, I want the game developers to be safe and paid correctly,
but I don't want to get
things
bored.
Are fine, but I also want to continue with the series, and I don't want it to die out.
Yeah.
So that's a hard thing to like balance. But I'm not sure if them doing free to play in the way that Fortnite's doing and putting more of this small stuff in there is really going to help solve the problem. So I know what you mean where you're saying you don't want it to go too far this way so that it, they can claim they're making more money to pay their developers better, but you don't know if that's actually happening.
Yeah. I want to get kind of move on to, and Brittany, that was actually a great segue into, I keep wanting content. I want content and I don't want to get bored. A big thing that they're going to be changing up for Shadowkeep and year 3 is how you get powerful sources. If you don't know what that is, that's how you level your character up and get to, basically the max power level that you can be, so you can really tear shit up is a great way to put it. Right now in Destiny, I can go to pretty much almost every planet and get a powerful engram, which is going to drop me guaranteed highest level or
higher level than
what you have gear. And right now, it's easy to get, and I know that there's a hardcore base of people that want the max light to be for people who only do end game activities, so raid, Iron Banner, things like that. For those, what are we expecting to change in Shadowkeep? How is this going to?
Well, he said that they're looking to retire some sources of powerful engrams. So okay, but then because what they're trying to do is they're trying to artificially lengthen the time it takes for you to level up.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing. And that's how they're trying to keep you coming back and playing it in between each season of release that they do. And I'll tell you right now, you're going to lose people. You're going to lose like a lot of people, because what's going to happen is that people are grinding, trying to get the stuff, and eventually something else comes out, and they're going to be like, all right, you know what? I'm going to play this new game, because like in September alone, like Borderlands 3 comes out.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I'm going to give my life to that game.
Yeah,
I'm just going
like-
to warn you guys ahead of time.
I mean, like there's like in September alone, there's like 2 or 3 like hard hitting games that come out. So if your game is just going to drib and drab me over the next few months, like I got other games that are going to take my attention and they're going to treat me right.
And here's where I have an issue, and Brittany, I want to get your take too. But for me, who walked away from Destiny for I think just about a year, I personally was thrilled that I could level up relatively quickly. Obviously now, like I don't need to go do the Flashpoint every week. I don't need to go to the Dreaming City and do Blind Well and do the Ascendant Challenge. I got my Curse Breaker. Yeah. My medallion's coming soon.
You actually ordered it?
Fuck yeah, I did.
Oh my god!
I collect
He
that.
earned it.
I did. Thank you. I
don't
earned
even
it.
play this
I would
game,
have
and I
let
know.
you, because I had several seals done. I should have given you my code so you can order this.
I wouldn't have done it because I hadn't earned it. I have to earn it.
See?
Brittany made.
I
made-
get this 1,000%. And other people listening to this are probably like, I don't get it. It's just a video game. No.
No.
Play and you'll understand.
No, probably people listening do understand
Well,
because
true.
nerds.
You never know.
But I was thrilled that I could, I said I was only going to do 2 characters, and of course they did the stupid Solstice armor. I was like, all right, I'm going to level my Titan back up too. But Brittany, as someone who potentially, and you said like, listen, like you're going to play Borderlands 3 to death when it comes out. Does it turn you off that like you could potentially come in as a free-to-play player but not be able to level up at the same pace as say Matt and I, who are paid players?
Yeah, there's always a certain dynamic like that if, it's based on how much you're paying and how, like, the rate that you're able to reach the same achievements is different. Like, that's the same as literally, like, for-profit education here, if you think about it. It's literally, like, the amount of money you're putting into it is equaling certain achievements. And, like, that... I get that that's capitalism and how life is shaped, but at the same time, you're like, can this stay out of my game? But like you guys are talking about there being a way for you to level up quickly if you're somebody who's been out for some time and you're playing the game, or there's specific spots that everybody knows that you can go to get these things to level up.
To grind,
and now they're
basically,
talking, yeah. I mean, dude, I've put over 200 hours into every single Final Fantasy game I've played every time I've played it. So I know all about grinding, and I know the best and fastest ways to level up. If a game were to go in and then remove those things that are those core areas where you can grind and level up just because they in some way want to, I guess, it's not really broken, but if they wanted to unbreak the game in some way or get rid of some sort of element they put in there, that means you're not a good game maker. As a DM,
and they're
like,
doing
I can't
it.
undo or retcon things that I've given my
Right.
characters, whether or not I accidentally gave somebody a weapon that's overpowered, or I'm like, here's a magic item, I think they're going to use it once, and then it ends up, they figure out some way to, like, use it for every encounter and it's broken. Like, there's some ways you can tweak things, but you can't fully remove it.
And I think this is them trying to cater to like the hardcore players, like the Dados and those guys, the streamers who really are complaining like Max Light should be for the people that only do endgame content. To which I say, I half agree with you, and I would like to see a compromise where I think the powerful gear that drops now should stay where it is, but it has to require a little bit more, like not just 2 blind wells, maybe 4 blind wells, maybe instead of 5 crucible matches, 10 crucible matches. Don't have play 1 crucible match and get a powerful drop daily. Like,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I like the day, like, and I thought that originally they used to have it where you would get a weekly powerful engram from certain things, and that was it, and I was fine with that. Like, okay, fine, whatever. I level up, this and this and this and that, but then they turned it into overdrive where you get daily powerfuls and weekly powerfuls, and it's like, god damn.
I get
like,
they want to keep people engaged.
No,
but you
I
have to
get
have
that.
the scaling. For
Yeah.
it.
yeah, you have
For
you
sure.
have to you have to be careful with how you quote retire sources for powerful engrams. So
I agree with you guys.
Brittany, we didn't get a chance to do it. I thought we'd have some time, but we didn't. I wanted you to come over and get a feel for what Gambit is. You didn't. Maybe, I don't know if you're going to come over to our little shindig today. You can. play it later. But Gambit is a game mode that was introduced with Forsaken, and then when they did Season of the Drifter, if I'm correct, you can correct me on this, they added Gambit Prime because people were complaining that, as a lot of people in the Destiny community call it, Hobo Gambit, was just too long and too much of a grind. So they did Gambit Prime, which is just one round.
Yes.
And then Luke Smith said with year 3, they're going to have to decide which is staying because they're not going to keep both.
It's going to be Gambit Prime.
And I would have to
I'll
agree
tell
with
you that right now. There's no, like, I like some of the changes they made to original Gambit, like, because original Gambit is 3 rounds.
It's still too long.
Well, the thing is that third round is just against the boss.
Yeah.
If you both tie it and, blah, 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 blah.
Sudden death.
And so it's fine. Like, all right, you made it a little faster and so on and so forth. But it's like you can't do stuff like drain their bank, with like, oh, we have like more Taken coming in, so it's draining their bank and blah, blah, blah. So there's that back and forth of like, all right, we'll send an invader to try and get them to lose some of their moats, and then we'll send, some Taken to drain their bank while this is going on. Like, there's more strategy involved in Gambit Prime. And the fact that Luke Smith just doesn't come out right and say, we're going to keep Gambit Prime.
Yeah.
We're going to keep, because he even said, if I remember correctly, like, I really like Gambit Prime. I really like it a lot.
And I think that's what you'll get from pretty much anyone who plays Destiny. The hardest part of doing the Soul Sister armor grind this past month was having to do 10 fucking matches of regular Gambit or Hobo Gambit. It was a grind, especially if you weren't playing with a clan, because matchmaking in Gambit sucks so bad.
I'm semi decent at Gambit, so
I love Gambit if I'm playing with my people.
Fair enough.
I can't. I almost blew my brains out with that.
I just want to let y'all know, every time you said Gambit, I was thinking my favorite telekinetic card slinging down here in the bayou.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that
Mon
because
cher.
the Drifter has a bit of an accent.
All right.
Vex on the
McConaughey?
field, or
Cabal.
Hive on the field. Bring a sword. He just kind of talks
Nice.
like.
Okay.
Gambit.
Well, every time you
he
guys
does.
said it, I was just like, where's Rogue?
She was sweating profusely, trying not to start talking about Gambit.
I'm gonna skip this part unless Matt, you want to touch on it briefly about Eververse and
I've already said my distaste with moving into a more free to play direction, and when they say like, oh, Eververse is going to be a bigger thing, and they justify it by saying like, oh, the Whisper quest and the Outbreak quest, like, we paid for that through Eververse, and I'm going to say, like, I kind of believe you, but I also think you're full of shit.
And then we already talked about free to play, so we'll move on from that as well. Let's finish our segment off with talking about Shadowkeep, where it got delayed, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
I love a developer saying, hey, we were going to release it then. We need to polish it some more. I think that's huge. I'm glad that they didn't just release it.
The only thing with that I'm kind of like scratching my head about is that normally the month of October is when they do their whole oh god, what's the Festival of the Lost?
Yeah.
Like all of October is basically now, and so if you've never played Destiny, basically they have certain holidays that they have in the Destiny universe, and the Festival of the Lost is their Halloween. That's when like your players can wear masks, they do all this stuff, and like you can get certain armor stuff, and like I actually like Festival of the Lost, and I like the Dawning, which is their Christmas, and they just introduced Solstice, which is like their summer event. So now that Shadowkeep releases in October, you're going to be getting accustomed to this new armor system, because they call it Armor 2.0, the way the system is going to be redone, which, okay, fine. How are they going to do Festival of the Lost in the middle of all this is the only thing I kind of scratch my head at. Like, how are we handling that?
Maybe they're just going to skip it this year. We'll see. It's going to be a massive expansion with they said Rise of Ironsides. So, again, Shadowkeep comes out on October 1st. Matt and I will be playing the hell out of that, and maybe Brittany will give it a try when it goes
We'll
free
see.
to play.
When
Maybe
I
not.
stop having like 5 jobs, maybe.
Yes, when she stops having 5 jobs and maybe stops playing Borderlands when that comes out.
Yeah, we'll see. My brother's coming home next week, and that's like one of our main games we play together. So
Let's get down to the nitty gritty of Rise of Skywalker, our last segment of the night. Matt, isn't it kind of hilarious that I was talking about last week how about like I want to be excited for this movie? And you talked about how, man, if they had done like something with Rey at the end or something, and then this happens.
That's and the thing is that but the thing is though is that I'm not as pumped from the trailer as some people are because they used a lot of like other footage and didn't show me much about.
To be
the
fair,
movie.
it wasn't actually a trailer. It was con footage. How about you? Did it get you any more level of like, oh my god, Star Wars is like 3 months away?
Not really. I'm just kind of like, I want to see how they're tying it up. I had my initial theories from when the first of the newest trilogy came out and where I thought they were taking Rey's character and where it's going, and I was like, oh, I hope they go the Grey Jedi route, and we finally get a solid Grey Jedi happening here. And then it was kind of going that way, and now they just throw in this random dark Rey, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying it.
Well, let's get down to breaking it down a little bit and see where we go with our thoughts. The first shot of this, after they use all the footage from the prequels, like you mentioned, Matt, and the original trilogy, is of this crew that we got to meet all together in The Force Awakens. Finn, Rey, Poe, BB-8.
Finally.
Yeah. All together. And JJ specifically said that unlike what happened in Last Jedi, where they were all different places, they are going to be together in this movie, which is what I think made Force Awakens pretty special.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that, but it's kind of ridiculous to me that the director has to say that. That is just like, just imagine like some other movies if they had to do like everybody's going to be together this time. Don't worry about it. They're not going to be separate and have their own individual stories that could be interesting.
Or not.
I mean, look
Like,
at
or not.
Stranger Things Season 3. Like, I get that a lot of people have good separate stories, but even throughout that, you still like those moments where they all finally come together because you're like, oh, cool, all their storylines are lining up. They're all on the same page. What's going to happen now?
Yeah, I mean, to me, you don't need to have them all together as long as their separate stories are interesting. That was the problem with Last Jedi is at least one of their separate stories was not interesting.
Last Jedi sympathizer here.
Yeah, I know you are, and we're going to fight about that
Oh,
later.
man. Either way, it's nice to know that they're going to be kind of going on this desperate journey because, listen, like, the Resistance isn't the rebellion. Like,
It's like 50 people now.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And we especially saw after the last movie. Whew.
yeah, there's some magic that's going to need to happen.
That magic is the midichlorians in your blood.
Oh, God.
Even Master Yoda's midichlorian count isn't that high. No Jedi's is. I just watched. I told Brittany before we started recording. I just watched Phantom Menace again with my daughter.
Yeah,
She's-
I'm really glad. I'm really glad the Phantom Menace brought the it's over 9,000 thing into the Star Wars universe. That's what it needed.
yeah. Wow.
Midichlorians.
His midichlorians are over 9,000.
Speaking of how in shambles the Resistance is, the next shot is of this ridiculously small fleet of like X-wings, B-wings, and like Y-wings, and like a what are they? Not the Carillion Corvette, or it is a Carillion.
I think there are.
Corvette.
They're like
the
straight
Carillion
up
Corvette.
Imperial Star
Yeah.
Destroyers.
And then you get like the original trilogy Imperial class Star Destroyers, like, and there's what, like
There's
100
I
of
don't
them.
know. There's like 50 at least. in
And
that
what
shot,
you
and
don't
I'm like,
see
what
is that
this?
there are super lasers on their bellies. They are retrofitted. What the hell's gonna happen here, man? Like, this is crazy.
We need lasers that can like destroy a planet because that's what we got. in
Matt
Star
sounds
Wars.
so thrilled about Rise of Skywalker.
That's what we got. We
I
have
don't know,
to have.
man. There's like less resistance left than there was like actual members of Rogue Squadron back in the day.
Dude,
Like,
I know I'm like reading too much into this, but like the whole thing with the Star Wars universe and like the thing that like I have to roll my freaking eyes at with the new trilogy is the fact that the First Order somehow was able to crush all resistance in the galaxy. Like people like I know I'm kind of going more extended universe, but it makes sense, but the destruction of Alderaan outraged most of the galaxy, and that's what gave the rebellion its uplift and why they actually had like capital ships and stuff like that in Return of the Jedi, because planets were like, you know what, these guys blew up a goddamn planet. Like it's time to fight them. So you're telling me the First Order like nuked an entire system? Everybody's like, oh man, I'm not getting in on this action.
that's actually a really good point. Like,
I mean, and their planet destroying super weapon was blown the hell up, much
I
like
think
the Death
they all
Star.
really rallied because Bale died.
well,
It was a joke. Anyway,
there is, I think, in some of the books, it was mentioned that maybe a lot of the reason there aren't any capital ships is because part of the accords with the Empire, when the New Republic came up, they demilitarized the Republic fleet, basically. Which is stupid.
I'm about to say, like, hey guys, we're getting word that they're building some planet destroying super weapon out of a planet. That's fake news. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about
fake
that.
news.
It's classic, dictators taking over. They're like, oh, no, we'll make our military big so you can make yours smaller.
Yeah. What the hell's going on with C-3PO's red eyes, guys?
I think it's just lighting. I don't think it's meant to be that deep.
I don't know, man.
He also had the
Those
red
were some
arm.
red.
Yeah, about to
eyes.
say, what about his red arm? Like, is he slowly being
That was in the
possessed?
comics.
Yeah.
They couldn't find a gold arm, and they had to find like another. Like it's basically salvaged from another protocol droid.
Yeah.
C-3PO is probably one of the most useless characters in the new trilogy.
Well, I think they're making him a fighter in this one. Like he has a giant gun to attach
He's
to him.
only there for human-cyborg relations. He knows so many languages.
Which, of course, he never really uses that much, but no.
Not anymore.
He does speak Ewok
Back
in Return of the
then.
Jedi.
I was going to say.
And he does talk to Jabba the Hutt.
I think we already know from shots. We can kind of skip over this one. We are getting very low on time here. That super laser hitting the planet coming from, I think, those original trilogy class Star Destroyers. There's rumor going around that if they make one giant beam, it's like another super laser. Oh my god!
Everybody, tilt your ship 30 degrees, please.
I picture the Emperor
streams.
giving orders like, I need you all to line up your lasers
Do
and
it.
fire at once.
Do it. Well, if you think about it, I know it's overused that people are like, oh, they're always using a giant laser to blow things up, but like their main huge powerful weapon is a lightsaber, so they're really just using a giant, just like boom, boom.
And I guess
Turn
like
on
what
your
else do you
lightsaber.
use in Star Wars where things are laser
can't,
based?
unless you have somebody literally like Force Unleashed level force powers and like crashing,
or they
ships into
bring in
planets.
from the expanded universe the Sun Crusher ship. Oh yeah,
God.
that thing is awesome.
People aren't ready for this.
Rey and Kylo sparring, fighting on the rubble of the sunken Death Star. This is theoretically on like an ocean on Endor. Pretty
It looks cool. I want to see
Cool.
that. Scene.
Yeah, it looks cool.
yeah. Whether there's a lot of talk that they're not fighting, that they're sparring. That sure look like fighting to me.
No. They're fighting.
They're fighting, which then moves us right along right after that shot. There wasn't a whole, like Matt mentioned, a whole lot of new footage in this trailer, but obviously the biggest, Dark Rey, Sith Rey, Vision Rey, whatever we're going to call her, and her Swiss Army knife lightsaber. Which, listen, we're making fun of it, but it was still pretty
I mean,
badass.
it was a nifty scene, but in my honest opinion, it's like, and I said this before, is they're not going to end this trilogy with Rey going down the
They're
dark
not.
side.
It would
with,
make no sense.
with them like holding hands and frolicking off into the darkness together with Palpatine, like
Especially
whole
after
time.
the last movie, that literally proved that she was like, no, I can't be tempted to the dark side. Even if you're like, let's rule together, both these sides are wrong. She's like, I'm still not going to do that.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, more than likely, I see it as some kind of vision of like maybe like the Emperor's in Rey's head, and now, and because God forbid we just have like her act and have that battle on her face, like seeing it on Luke's face in Return of the Jedi
Yeah.
of like the struggle. Instead, we're gonna have that vision
visions.
and that moment where she's gonna pull out the double-bladed red lightsaber and kill people, and then we're gonna zoom out of Rey's eye, and then she's gonna be like, "No, I'm not gonna become that." Like,
Yeah.
I can see it.
It's definitely going to be the same moment as when, like, Luke, the whole movie, is wearing that black suit, and you're like, oh no, is he going to be tempted by the dark side? He's wearing so many dark clothes, and then that flap falls open, and you're like, art direction. You know what I mean, though? It's like, you were like, who designed this costume? Who thought of the set design? This is fantastic.
I'm going with both of you being wrong on this, and that is, if I think that JJ is going to take a huge cue from the expanded universe, because the Emperor was cloned a lot in the EU. That Rey and her whole thing is that she is a clone.
That would be so stupid.
I disagree. I think if they do it right, it could be awesome. I like it. I think it's better than a Vision, since a Vision's been done before.
I just think that it's going to be a repeat of the trilogy, and the fact that it is going to be that flap moment.
The flap is
It opens up and it shows you that he was light underneath all along. You never should have
Good
questioned
Lord.
him.
I
I wanted them to just go full on Grey Jedi with Rey, actually finally bringing balance to the Force by making light and dark even, by actually realizing the mythology.
We don't know if that's not going to happen, though.
Her outfit changed to gray in the second movie, and I'm like, they're finally doing it. Let's go. You don't literally have to wear gray to be a Grey Jedi. I'm just prefacing that.
Can we very, very briefly
Yeah, sorry.
talk about something that's been shown and people have been talking about, especially on the scene where I think I actually skipped over it by accident. Rey is training on Endor, throwing her lightsaber around. There's actually a new scene of her. It's going like really far. And on her hand is this red piece of cloth. And apparently it's gonna have some kind of it's seen, I think, in the first trailer too, some like major significance, like
the red cloak of a emperor guard, imperial guard.
something. I'm really curious what that's gonna be.
Or it could just be some
It's
random.
just part
She
of the
cut her.
clothing she ripped from the Red
Well,
Guard
listen,
in
no,
the
I
last
mean,
movie.
Matt, I would agree with you that it could just be something random, but like, dude, her whole outfit is otherwise white. Like she's wearing white, like the hood is integrated into the outfit, and then there's this one random red piece of cloth. It's just interesting to me.
I mean, as I said, I legit would be unhappy if they go, oh, raise a clone, because then it's just going to be like,
Can I just say that I love that she's, like, even if that's in a version, whatever, having the double-sided lightsaber makes sense for Rey, and like I've said this since the first movie, people were tearing apart the way that she couldn't really fight with a lightsaber in the first movie, and I was like, this is a person who grew up her entire life fighting with a staff. Now she's given a single-handed weapon. The way that she swings it is the same way that you would swing a staff, and she just doesn't have the other half, so that's why her fighting's so clumsy, but it's purposefully clumsy in that first movie. Then the second one, she actually has some training
semblance
and
of training,
starts
yeah.
actually fighting like she's wielding a two-handed. It's supposed to be a broadsword. That's how they've trained them, in the past. And then in this one, to have something that's even collapsible and then comes around to be like that
Yeah,
weapon that she's so in tune with. Like if she's trained her whole life with that, that's the weapon she needed. So I'm for that, just not necessarily red, unless they're gonna change
the
that
color.
idea.
It could be a whole red
Yeah.
herring
It-
business.
It always is with Star Wars.
It is September 1st. We are 2.5 months. October, November. 3.5 months from Rise of Skywalker.
That's pretty
This didn't get me to the level that I wanted to, but it definitely upped it a lot. Like, I'm ready for Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I'm also ready for Disney Plus, but that's a whole nother story. I think Mandalorian is going to hype me for Rise of Skywalker.
Mandalorian is what I'm more excited to watch, but Rise of Skywalker is what I just want them to end it in a good
Yeah.
arc, that it's like the whole Skywalker saga is done, like I feel good about it.
Hmm.
If they can do that, I won't complain.
We'll have another trailer for Rise of Skywalker probably coming very soon, and we'll have all the talk about that when it comes out. That does it for this week's episode. We will be back. Thank you.
That was a Tusken Raider cheering us
that
on.
was an awesome way to end the show. I love it. You did it better than I am. That was embarrassing.
I can do the wub dance too.
I think we should stop
Doji,
before
oh
I
my
embarrass
God.
myself anymore. Happy Labor Day
Love
weekend. If you had one and went away, it is obviously now your work week. We will see you next Tuesday with another episode. Have a good night.